Okay, thank you. Just finished up a closed session here, so got a couple of items deal with from that. Recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive for information the water services and drinking water quality management standard presentation. I got a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Hearn, seconded by Councillor Rankin. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North approve the closed meeting minutes of the March 20th, 2023 council meeting. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Is Chris joining us virtually? Okay.
You just emailed me to say that it was locked.
Okay. I'll just. So next up, we have a presentation this afternoon with Chris Bandak from Deloitte to give us an update on the community satisfaction survey findings. Welcome to our meeting, Chris, and whenever you're ready, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So I'll take it from here. Let me just share my screen. Can everyone see the presentation? Excellent. So thank you very much for having me here, and thank you for selecting Deloitte to conduct your citizen satisfaction survey. The first slide will quickly go over the research objectives and the methodology that was used. The objectives were basically to understand some of the priority issues, to look at how we could improve service delivery. It's also there to guide some of the decisions for the Township of Wellington North moving forward, to also aid in the budgetary planning process, and to obtain accurate and relevant feedback from residents. We used two separate sort of methodologies. The first methodology, which we'll call the scientific methodology, is a random sample using a mix of landlines and cell phone numbers. That was used to conduct 100 completed interviews. This is what we call the scientific sample. It's representative of the population. It allows you to extrapolate back to the population. And that resulted in a margin of error of plus or minus 9.8% with a 95% confidence interval, indicating that the results could be repeated 19 times out of 20. We also had an open link survey that allowed the remainder of the population to have a chance to give some feedback. This is primarily used for optics. It's also good just to give a general understanding of how some other folks in the general population feel. For the purposes of this report or this presentation, we're going to focus on the scientific results. I will mention that in your full reports, you should have a copy of both the online and the telephone survey. There are some key differences. The online survey results tend to be less positive. And we know that to be the case. That's very typical of market research, in that people who seek out surveys or look to give feedback tend to be more polarized in their opinions, and therefore you tend to get people who perhaps might have a more negative impact. Sometimes it's more positive, but typically they skew more to the negative side. So enough about all the methodology. I'll move on to the results. And I will preface the entire presentation with saying the results in Wellington North were extremely high, some of the highest I've seen, and I've been doing this for 10 plus years in tons of communities across Canada. I've developed the methodology that everyone uses now, using derived importance and priority matrix. but it's very difficult to get into the 90 percentile. And you guys, as I walk you through it, you'll understand your results were very high. So the first question sort of relates to quality of life. And so when we ask people, were they satisfied with the quality of life in the Township of Wellington North, you can see 97% of the population chose the top two box, being either somewhat satisfied or very satisfied. Again, we typically see results 70s, 80s, some in the low 90s, but it's very difficult to get this high of a percentile. So kudos to Wellington North. This is extremely positive results in terms of quality of life. Before we asked about services, we kind of prefaced it by providing some information to all the survey respondents to help them understand what the township delivers in terms of services versus, let's say the province or federally. So this just helped to give some scope before we got into the next question, which was overall, how satisfied are you with the services provided by the township? And again, we see an extremely positive result with 96% of the population saying they are either somewhat satisfied or very satisfied. In both cases that I've just presented, it's kind of split between the somewhat satisfied and very satisfied, which is still good. It's a very good result. I guess if you wanted to look at the future or where perhaps you could look at improvements, maybe the goal would be to get more people into the very satisfied category. And that could be a good potential goal moving forward, because it's going to be tough to change those metrics overall. When we look at satisfaction levels amongst the services, programs and services that we asked about, you can see, first of all, the scores overall are again very, very high, ranging from 70 to 100%, with the majority being 80% or higher. Again, that is a very high result. That's excellent. Your service delivery must be excellent, and people in the general population are overall pretty happy. Some of the top, we have fire services at 100%, cemeteries, licensing, elections management, parks, trails, open spaces, facility rentals, all in the 90s. That's a great result. Areas where you didn't perform quite as well, road and sidewalk maintenance, outdoor pools and splash pads, land use planning, bylaw enforcement. But again, it's still mid 70s. It's not bad. Economic development, even though it's sort of down below, it's still in 82. So I really wouldn't say that's something that requires immediate attention, but you could focus on the areas of that are lower that I mentioned a moment ago. So what do? We do an interesting statistical calculation to determine what's important. And rather than ask importance, we try and get to the subconscious to really understand what drives behavior. And the way we do this is a statistical correlation analysis. So in the previous slide, you'll see that we asked an overall satisfaction question, which is overall, how satisfied are you with the services provided? We then ask individual satisfaction questions with each of the individual services. So we do a correlation analysis between the two to help us understand what really is important without asking what's important. And so it's kind of hard to explain this, statistical concept. So we've developed this little animation that you can see on the screen here. And so if we look at the example of road maintenance and repair, you can see that as satisfaction increases and decreases, it has a very large impact on overall satisfaction. So that would be deemed to be a very important factor. Conversely, if you look at the availability of trails, you can see that as satisfaction increases and decreases, it has a very small impact on the overall satisfaction. So it would not be deemed to be as important because it's not impacting your overall satisfaction scores. So we do all this so that we can come to a priority matrix, which really helps you understand the areas that are the low-hanging fruit. So there are areas that are important to the population, but perhaps there's room for improvement. And so going to the top of the list, and I always say this whenever I do a presentation, it doesn't mean that you have to focus on item 1 or item 2. It's just a priority ranking. And so you may look at some of these and say, well, we don't need to do anything, or we've already done something. And in some cases, it could be just providing communication to the public, letting them know that you're working on these things. In some cases, it could be a service change. But it's up to you, and you guys obviously would work through those issues internally. So at the top of the priority rank, we have road and sidewalk maintenance, followed by outdoor pools and splash pads, land use planning, and bylaw enforcement. So those would be your top 4 things that you could work on where there's room for improvement, and they're also very important. Now, one note of positivity is parks, trails, and open spaces. That you have very high performance, and it's also very important to the community. So that's a win. That's something you're doing very, very well. So just something to keep in mind, and this sort of helps guide, what you do as you move forward with your determination for which services to focus on. We asked an open-ended question. As a resident of Wellington North, what is one of the issues you feel should be prioritized to improve the quality of municipal services? So this is just asking open-endedly. And at the top of the list, road maintenance and repair came up. We've seen it in the other slide. Policing, community pool, improved communications about changes in the community. And then it kind of trickles off there into some other categories such as public transportation, additional support for homeless. Thinking about the programs and services, how would you rate the value for tax dollars based on the services that you receive? Again, a very, very good score. This is not an easy category to get a high score on, simply because nobody, at the end of the day, nobody likes paying taxes, right? It's something you have to do. But 89% hit the top 2 box. In this case, you can see a greater difference between very good and fairly good, but still overall a positive result. It means that people feel that the services that you're providing versus the amount of property tax that they pay to be reasonable. We then asked them we gave 3 sort of categories for budget and taxes, 3 different elements, and asked them which one they would choose. So the first being increasing taxes above the rate of inflation. This would allow for some enhanced service levels without the need to cut any services. 21% of the population chose that particular option. Option 2 was to increase taxes by the rate of inflation in order to maintain service levels. If service levels were to be enhanced in one area, they would be offset by a reduction in services in another area. 50% chose this. So basically 71% of your population agreed to either go with the rate of inflation or slightly more. So they want to keep the services that they have at least the same levels, or perhaps want a tiny bit more. And then 29% of the population indicated that they would like taxes below the rate of inflation, with the understanding that there could be a small decrease in the service levels provided. Do you agree that Wellington North provides sufficient opportunities to participate and engage with the township? Was the next question we asked. And again, 81%, good result, indicating that they somewhat or strongly agree with this statement. So it's great to see that the population feels that they have opportunities to engage and participate in what's happening in the township. In terms of communication, we asked what their preferred method for communicating or engaging with the township would be. And you can see newsletter, direct mail being at the top, followed by email, the website, in-person and public meetings, an online survey, which we just did, telephone via automated calling service. So that gives you the distribution of what's preferred there. Next, we asked them the same question, but from the perspective of how would they like to receive information from the township. And we see newsletter, direct mail again at the top, followed by email, township website, and local newspapers. And then when we gave another opportunity to give an open-ended response, and we asked, what is the biggest opportunity for Wellington North to improve the quality of life over the next 4 years? And some of the top issues that were listed were affordable housing, improved township planning and management, recreation centers and activities, and then more retail and grocery stores. And again, it kind of drops off a bit from there, going to road maintenance, more policing, keeping a small feel. And that is the basic summary of the presentation. I'll open it up to any questions, comments.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. Any questions from council? Councillor McCabe? Oh, Chris, can you stop screen sharing, please?
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Lennox, thanks for that, Chris. Pretty informative stuff. I just had a kind of maybe a little two-parter. Can you, like, from the survey respondents, can you tell where most of the respondents are from? Like what town or what area within the township, or do you follow that information?
Yeah, we could pull that. We didn't pull it for the report because, you know, when with 100 completed interviews, it doesn't make sense to do that kind of breakdown. But it would be proportionate across the township. So there should be an equal distribution. Sorry, not equal, a proportionate distribution across the township based on population.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Chris? Councillor Hearn and then Councillor Burke.
Hi, pretty simple question, and you may have already addressed it. I was writing so much, I could have missed it, but I'm just wondering whether the response rate is typically a good one based on our population.
Sorry, do you mean the sample size or the response rate? Just
the amount of response.
Yeah, the 100 completes. Yeah, so I mean, the only difference if you were to increase the sample size would be a slightly smaller margin of error, but the degree of accuracy does not change. So in other words, even if we did 300-400 completed interviews, the results would look exactly the same. It's just the margin of error shrinks a little bit. That's the great thing about doing a random sample is you don't need to actually, the more people you speak to, it doesn't actually change the results. And it's a hard concept to get sort of everybody on board with because they think, wow, there's thousands of people here, you know, and you only spoke to 100, but it actually works. And even if we did more completes, I mean, they predict elections across Canada with, you know, 400 or 500 completed interviews. So it's good.
Councillor Burke.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, Chris. A lot of great information. And my question is, based on the telephone surveys and the online surveys, by demographic, do we have the ages of those that participated? Because I find it interesting in some of the differences, particularly in the communication piece where it was mail and direct mail versus sort of, I think it was email and online platforms for the online surveys. And I also, so that's my question. And I, just as a comment, I found it very interesting that sort of the top 4, 5, or 6 items were relatively the same, but just in a little bit different order.
Yeah, I mean, we always weight all of the data back to the proportions of gender and age so that there isn't skewing of the data, at least in the telephone survey. But we do know that it does skew slightly older for the telephone survey. The online survey skews a little bit younger. And that's just really based on, you know, the methodology. regardless, it always gets weighted back into proportion, so those impacts don't have any effect on the actual results, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, I'm not seeing any more, Chris. So again, thank you very much for the presentation. I hope your bill doesn't go up when the feedback is this positive. This is great news, and thanks for coming to share that with us.
I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a recommendation that goes along with this. That the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report CAO 2023-004 for information. And that council receive the results of the 2023 Community Satisfaction Survey for information. And further, the council approve the next steps in the strategic planning process, including holding a council workshop on April 11th from 3 to 5 p.m., initiating a broader staff consultation, and developing a community consultation plan. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to adoption of the minutes of the council and public meeting, and the recommendation is that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on March 20th, 2023 be adopted as circulated. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Rankin. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I don't think we have any business arising from the previous meetings, so we're on to items for consideration. So let's pull out any that we'd like to have further discussion on. Anybody have others they'd like to pull out for discussion? Go ahead, Councillor McCabe.
Yep, thank you. And through you, Mayor, I'd like, where is it? 3B, capital project status.
Councillor Burke.
I'd also like to have 1C.
Okay. Okay, that's the Mount Forest BIA one.
Yes, thank you.
Any others? Councillor Rankin.
A 4B, please.
4B, this is regarding the correspondence from Roma. Okay, thank you. Any others? Anyone else would like to pull out? Okay, I'm not seeing any more, so we'll move on to the recommendation to adopt the others. And that reads that all items listed under items for consideration on the April 3rd, 2023 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Rankin. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll go back to 1C. We've got a couple of recommendations here with regard to the Mount Forest BIA. The first recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the minutes of the Mount Forest Business Improvement Area meeting held on March 21st, 2023. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Any discussion on that recommendation? Okay, all those in favor? It's carried. We'll move to the next recommendation. And that is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North accept the resignation of Kathleen Del Cario from the Mount Forest BIA Board of Directors, and further the council appoint Claire Prentice from CP Wellness and Maggie Schramm from Magpie's Bakery to the Mount Forest BIA Board of Directors, and further that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the bylaw. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke. and open that up for discussion. Go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let council know that they've added they're asking for a couple of new directors. And I know that there may be a couple of other names that may come forward. So they may be looking to add additionally. They just feel that they've got a lot of projects on the go, and some additional bodies on the board would be very useful. As you can see through the minutes, they've got a lot on the go, and they're looking to complete as many of these projects that are outlined sort of in the minutes that you see for 2023.
Any other discussion? Okay, then I think it's great. Of course, we want to thank Kathleen for her service and welcome these two new directors to the board to carry out the work. And if there's more, that I think that bodes well for getting things done and for the future as well. So that's great news. Thanks, Councillor Burke. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to 3B. This is the capital project status report. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive for information report CAO 023-005. I'm assuming that should be 2023. Being a report on the 2022-2023 capital project status. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Rankin. Thank you. And we'll open that for discussion. Councillor McCabe?
I just had a quick question, and through you, Mayor Lennox. Thanks for this report. It was good just to move forward and explain some of the stuff from last year going ahead. Is there, you don't want to say priority, but I guess it's priority for the 2022 projects to get kind of done before the 2023 or concurrently with the 2023, or how are you managing that?
Go ahead, Brooke.
Through you, Mayor Lennox. Yes, I would say that just depending on the stage of the project, anything that we can start concurrently, we'd be initiating right away. So it's more that it would be kind of the cumulative projects, but initiating them as soon as possible. And then again, depending on what's needed, if it's, you know, a design or a tender or completion, like we'd be looking at managing all those projects through the season.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Burke?
Yeah, so I'd like to take the time to thank Brooke and staff for going back through the budget and for this report. I'm happy to see that we're going to look at reviewing it, the carryover projects before we get into the 2024 budget. So again, thank you for that, because as I've said more than once, I have some real concerns with the carryover on it, but glad that we're addressing it, and we'll have some opportunity later on in the year to look at it as well.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to 4B. This is regard to the correspondence from Robin Jones from the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, and the recommendation reads as follows: that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive correspondence dated March 22nd, 2023 from Robin Jones, Chair, Rural Ontario Municipal Association, regarding strengthening municipal codes of conduct. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor McCabe. And with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Councillor Rankin?
Thank you. It was just sort of a sad state, I think, to see the problems that some municipal staff have amongst themselves when conducting township business. and they give some suggestions on how to move forward and correct these. I'm just wondering if there's anything that we as our municipal staff and council will be doing to make this a more positive step forward.
Not sure who to direct that question to. Rick?
I can chime in too if you want a little later
Through
on.
you, Mayor Lennox. I believe that the presentation we recently had with the Integrity Commissioner also addressed some of the opportunities that we have in terms of all the codes of conduct, especially amongst council members. And I know that there has been an enhanced focus on that across the province. And really it's a matter of how council wants to set those expectations for behavior. And so keeping that at the forefront in terms of dialogue and debate is really important. And just ensuring that we're kind of maintaining the standards that we feel are appropriate for public discourse. I could also, if Karen wants to speak to that as well, I'm happy to pass the mic over to her.
I've said it before and I say it again, we always write policies and procedures based on the worst case scenario. And I do an environmental scan usually every couple of days on just different news articles. And we are not anywhere near close to any problems here. And so you should be patting yourselves on the back for that. And yeah, we're in good shape, but that's why we always write for the worst. And then we wind up with the best. So yeah, no complaints, I don't think here.
Councillor McCabe, you had some comments?
Yeah, for sure. And thanks, Penny, for bringing this forward. I think one of the reasons Roma put this letter together, we talked about it at the last couple of meetings that I was at, and it's one thing for municipal politicians to argue and be disrespectful with each other at the council table, but then afterwards, it's there's been I hate to say it, but a bit of an uptick, sorry, in council members berating or I would say maybe abusing their power towards staff, and we should direct everything through our CAO, as she is our only employee, and then it's up to her to run her staff. So that's kind of one of the big pushes behind here. It's not just us getting along, but it's us knowing our spot in and I guess respecting what our staff does and what all the departments do in their staff, and then it goes right down to the public works people. I think we have a excuse me in rural Ontario municipalities, we see the public more often than in bigger cities, and we're probably more recognized at the grocery stores as well. And you see some of the staff at functions as well outside of the council. So it's just kind of putting in place more, I guess, policies, as Karen alluded to make sure that doesn't happen, or to at least curb it, and put in put more teeth to the policy as well for those that do overstep their authority.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I would just add too that it's much easier to put a policy in place when things are going smoothly than to try to fix it after things have gone awry. So the more we can do on the upfront side of things here to try to prevent, the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. I think this applies to this as well. So if our provincial partners could help with maybe strengthening some of the framework, and we can do our part to the best of our ability, then it should be fine, and we shouldn't have to be worrying about it. But certainly it's better to be prepared. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we move on here. Any notice of motion this afternoon? Okay, we'll move on then to community group meeting program report. Does anybody have anything they'd like to report on today? Councillor McCabe.
Just a quick one. Excuse me. We have Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee meeting tomorrow at 4 p.m. for all those who have nothing to do. Happy to have you guys join Penny and Councillor Ferguson from Southgate for that meeting.
Anybody have anything else they'd like to highlight this afternoon? Okay. I don't think I do either, although I just would bring up again the welcome event coming up on the 20th. Make sure that our volunteer celebration. Just a reminder for those who haven't registered for that to get that in there so we can have the numbers to make sure we have enough for everybody to eat. So that brings us to bylaws this afternoon. We've got 4 of them here. So I've got a recommendation here that bylaw number 23-23, 24-23, 25-23, and 26-23 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Rankin. Any discussion on any of those bylaws? I would just comment on the first one, bylaw 23-23, in that's our budget bylaw. So we had a very robust discussion at our last council meeting. And I think we arrived at a budget that while we didn't love it, we recognize that it represents what's necessary for us to do the things that we believe are necessary for our community. And just based on some of the feedback I've had, when we get close to a 9% increase in the budget, that tends to raise a few red flags with our residents. But I just want to make sure that we remind folks too that 9% increase in the Township of Wellington North portion of the tax bill does not translate to a 9% increase across the board in their entire tax bill. The county, which makes up the majority of the tax bill, had a 3.8% increase. The school board had a 0%, the school board levy had a 0% increase. So when you put them all together in the weighted average, it averages out to about a 5.1% tax increase. And while that's not very palatable either, at least it was below the rate of inflation for the last year significantly. And, given the struggles that our residents are facing, that is good news, at least that, the whole tax bill is well below the rate of inflation. And it'll still allows us to do the things that we believe are needed for our community for the future and for now. Councillor Rankin?
May I make a comment on another bylaw?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. It's bylaw D for the cultural roundtable. It's just nice to see that we have another new member of the cultural roundtable and to add to our strength, and looking forward to having him on board.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Yes, sorry, can I?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I
okay.
wasn't watching you, sorry. I hate to beat a dead horse with regards to the budget and the impact on all of our residents, and I understand that percentage breakdown, Mayor Lennox. I just wondering if there's anything, and I hate to, we just chatted about this, but is there anything that we can push or pare back just to make the I guess the increase more palatable? I don't know if there's anything we can keep in or take out for the budget, or.
Well, I think there's sure we could go back and adjust the budget and take things out if necessary, but I think based on the discussion we had at our last meeting, we felt that the things that were included in that budget were necessary for us, for not just for today, but for the future as well. So I'm not going to say it's impossible. I think it would be a mistake at this point to revisit this at this stage.
Okay,
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Cultural moments. I'll read today's cultural moment. I was going to hand it off to you, Councillor Burke, because Councillor Rankin did this for me for the first quarter, but since you're not here, I'm going to do it myself. You can do it in the next meeting. So the cultural moment for April 3rd celebrates our volunteers. This is for National Volunteer Week, which runs April 16th to 22nd. And the theme this year is Volunteering Weaves Us Together. Recently, as a member of our Wellington North Cultural Roundtable, I said, I felt being a volunteer was the experience of a lifetime. It is such an important life lesson to learn about being a part of your larger community with no expectation of financial benefit. It is with these acts of kindness, we have a positive effect on our own well-being and mental health. Volunteering is very social and gives a person a chance to meet new people, which may lead to future friendships. In small communities like ours, the number of programs available to the public run by volunteers well outnumber other programs offered. So things curling, hockey, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, figure skating, guides, scouts, 4-H, hospital auxiliary, food bank, etc., as well as seasonal events held in each community. High school age students must complete 40 hours of community service, volunteering to graduate, and the majority of them go well over the necessary hours, which have also led to part-time jobs to help pay for their college or university education. To celebrate our volunteers, the Township of Wellington North is inviting all volunteers in our community to join us on Thursday, April 20th for a volunteer celebration and newcomers welcome. This celebration, purposely planned to fall during National Volunteer Week, is being held between 4:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. at the Arthur and Area Community Center. The event will include displays from a variety of community organizations, Mayor's Welcome, Senior of the Year presentation, and cake cutting starting at 5 p.m. with a catered dinner at 5:30 p.m. As Mayor Lennox said in a recent press release, volunteers are the heart of Wellington North, and this celebration provides us with a great opportunity to thank the many volunteers in our community. To know that you can make a difference, however big or small, be aware that by volunteering, a difference can be made to both the giver and the receiver. This was submitted by Bonnie McDougall, Chair of the Wellington North Cultural Roundtable. Okay, we'll move on to our confirming bylaw this afternoon. And the recommendation is that bylaw number 27-23, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North at its regular meeting held on April 3rd, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor McCabe. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And before we jump to adjournment, I'll just draw your attention to some of the other things that are happening. The Wellington County Municipal Economic Development Committee has a meeting tomorrow from 9:30 to 11 in Aboyne. As Councillor McCabe mentioned, the Recreation Parks and Leisure Committee tomorrow afternoon. Mount Forest BIA Directors Meeting on Tuesday, April 11th from 8 to 10 a.m. A special council meeting on April 11th for a strategic planning workshop from 3 to 5 p.m. The Arthur Chamber of Commerce Directors Meeting Wednesday the 12th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. Mount Forest Chamber of Commerce Business After 5 at Hybrid Hair and Detox on 13 Main Street South in Mount Forest is the Thursday the 13th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. And our next regular meeting is Monday, April 17th at 7 p.m. And then there's an event coming up, Explore Your Future in Wellington. 750 plus grade 8 students from the Upper Grand District School Board and the Wellington Catholic District School Board at the Mount Forest and District Sports Complex on the 18th from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And of course, the volunteer celebration I mentioned at the 20th from 4:30 to 7. And the Mount Forest Lions Club 85th anniversary flag raising in front of the Mount Forest Archive building on Monday, May 1st at noon. With that, we'll move to our adjournment. I have a recommendation here that Councillor Hearn, sorry.
It's all right. I kind of did that at not a interesting time, but I was just going through the Explore Your Future. So in the notices here, I tried to look online what that was, and Dale is sitting here, so now I'm gonna try to find out if he knows more about what Explore Your Future is in Wellington North. I tried going through all my emails, maybe I missed something, Dale, so I apologize. Or do you know? Or am I asking the wrong person? I went on their Eventbrite and I couldn't exactly find out an agenda and all of that. So I was just looking for more information and whether we crashed it, whether it was okay.
So through you, Mayor Lennox, and yes, I'm the right person to talk to about it. So the Explore Your Future in Wellington is one we're partnering with the Career Education Council on. So the Career Education Council are actually doing a lot of the hosting, but the 3 northern municipalities in the county are all sponsoring it. So for that event, we have 750 grade 8 students that are being bussed in. The Catholic District School Board are coming in the morning, the Upper Grand District School Board in the afternoon. And it's to show, we have a number of exhibitors that are setting up to show our youth what sort of work opportunities there are in Northern Wellington. So as they get into high school and start to plan their future, this gives them a sense as to what might be available in the healthcare sector locally, what might be available in our manufacturing sector in some places like that. So that's what that event is all about. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but
Yeah, mostly. I was kind of looking to see like there's speakers and stuff for the day, and I couldn't find out who or what about that. I understand there'll be various businesses that are likely set up and there's a fee to do that.
yeah, we're not really having guest speakers. It's an interesting age group to make sure you keep them involved and engaged for an hour and a half as they come in. So the way it's going to be set up is there's going to be 15 to 20 businesses or organizations in each pod. And the students will spend 20 minutes at each one of these pods across the sports complex learning about different opportunities in that. So we're not really having speakers. We're having it set up that way. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Did I get a mover and a seconder for adjournment? No. Could I get a mover and a seconder for adjournment? Councillor Hearn, Councillor McCabe. So the regular council meeting of April 3rd, 2023 be adjourned at 2:52 p.m. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your day.